What is up, my imagination connoisseurs? It is I, the notorious RMB, here, coming at you live on a Saturday afternoon from I was going to say sunny Southern, but I'm mixing up my words. I don't know, and I'm only drinking water. But sunny Southern California, where the air is crispy, the clouds are white, and the sky is blue. It is a gorgeous day here. I figured, a friend of mine, Martin Lau, once again gave me a great topic for discussion. And today's topic for discussion, for the two people that are here, how are you? Thanks for joining me. Today's topic for discussion basically is about, well, it's another one of these get off my lawn conversations. The and I guess this is Clint Eastwood coined the cultural phrase "get off my lawn" in his film Gran Torino. At least I think that's where he coined the phrase. But basically, Norman Lau said, he said to me that these musings came to him in the shower this morning. And he was wondering if fandom, current modern day fandom, has changed or become much different than old fandom, like myself, or olden times fandom, because everything now is readily available. Ladies and gentlemen, there's the first glimpse of Gilbert. He loves to cross back and forth, going to and fro during these conversations, and he's happy that you're here. He's happy that I'm here, and he's just happy to be anywhere, I think. But so the thought was, Norman was like, because we had a much harder time getting those things that we're fans of, does that mean that they meant more to us than fandom today? Is the ubiquity of all of our geeky genre interests, does that make our geeky genre interests less valuable than they used to be? Which is something that I've actually found myself struggling with my whole life. I've always wondered. Now, kids, back in the old days when I had to walk 20 miles through the snow to get to school, but I didn't really have to. Barely ever snowed in Seattle. And when it did, it snowed for like a couple of days. You'd sled, and then that was it. So really, I never had to walk through snow. And it was never really a hardship to go to school in the morning, even when it was pouring down rain. You just took an umbrella. But anyway, I'll give you an example from my own life. So when I first got a VCR, there were very few movies out. Movies were not available on pre-recorded cassette. There were very few films. And as I've told you before, when I was 13 years old, I basically just hung out in this video store. I was the only kid, literally the only kid who had a VCR in Seattle. I mean, I'm sure there were others, but in my imagination, in my mind, I didn't know any others. Certainly our neighborhood didn't have any others. My grandfather had a furniture store with an electronics department, so he was able to get me an RCA VFT 625 VHS player, giant piano key buttons. You'd hit eject and go, was that kind of thing. Sorry if I just blew out your speakers. So anyway, there were no movies, and I would go to this video store, and whenever they would get new films in, it was like, once again, opening the Ark of the Covenant. Angels would sing, oh, and basically what they did, how the video store worked back then, was we'd get in the movies, and back then we'd get in VHS and beta. And the job they gave me was to take out the cassette and put the actual movie, into a faux leather case, a plastic leather case that had a faux leather covering. And those go back behind the counter. And then I would shrink wrap. I would take the tape box with a styrofoam insert, and I would shrink wrap the box again. And it was fun because I had this big tool that had this metal rod that would heat up, and you'd put it down on the plastic. So you'd make like a plastic bag, and you'd use this glorified hair dryer to shrink the plastic wrap and make it tight and glossy and shiny. And then I would put that box out on the shelf. So you could browse the boxes, and that was kind of common practice throughout the whole video era. But when I was 13 years old, I'd never seen this before, and there was only like 2 video stores in Seattle. People said that the video store I worked at, Video Space, along with Video Station here in California, were some of the first video stores in the United States. And so I was working there. But so the thing is, when a movie would come out, it was a momentous event, not unlike, I suppose, what it's like giving birth. I mean, at least it seemed that way to my 13-year-old mind. I mean, holding a copy of a movie that you couldn't and remember, this was back in the day when you couldn't take movies home. This was all new. The idea that you could get whatever movie you wanted to watch and bring it to your house and watch it 6 times over the weekend. And here's another thing. Back in the day, the way video space worked is you couldn't rent tapes because they were too expensive. Everything was too expensive. VCRs were over $1,000. And this was back in the late 70s, early 80s. So what would happen is you'd have to buy a movie. And they usually started, the cheap movies were like $56. You could get Halloween, that was on Meta Home Entertainment before Meta became Media. You could get Halloween or The Daytime Ended, even Night of the Living Dead, because it was public domain even back then. You could buy that for $56. And then you could keep that movie for a month. And then you'd bring it back and you'd pay $10 and you could swap out the tape. So you could give the tape back that you'd had for months. It was like a month rental, but you had to own the tape. So you had to buy the tape for $56 and then pay a $10 fee to swap it, where you get another brand new movie. And that's how videotape rentals were back in the day when I worked at Video Space. And my boss was Weston Nishimura, the founder of the VSDA, the Video Software Dealers Association of America, that became a lobbying group and a group that started. I mean, it was great. It became a huge thing because home video became explosive and it saved Hollywood. But back then, there was a whole bootlegging industry, and not bootlegging new movies, although that was part of it. If you could get it, I was a bootlegger. I used to sell horrible VHS dubs of terrible bootleg copies that people filmed off the screen of movies like Fantasia and E.T. And they were terrible. You could barely see them. You tune them in, but people would pay me $150 a pop. That was around when I was 15 and 16. I used to pay a theater manager and a projectionist $75 each to let me film off the screen when I was 16 years old. That's why when my mom found a gigantic wad of cash once in my bedroom desk drawer, she thought I was are you selling drugs? And I'm like, no, Mom, I'm not selling drugs. Do you know I've got 4 VCRs constantly daisy chain copying tapes? You never thought I wasn't just doing that for my own edification? No, I was selling bootleg videotapes. But that was work. And that brings me to the topic of this conversation. It was work. I had to work on that. I had to set up times where I could actually, usually I tried and do it opening weekend where you could go and you take your, I had a later, this was 4 years after I had my first VCR, RCA, and I forget the number of it. They made this beautiful silver VHS player that the tape section, you had the tuner that you'd leave behind, but the tape section would slide out and you could take it with you and hook it up to a camera. So I basically had a portable VHS deck that I could then take to a movie theater and film off the screen. And I prided myself on doing really nice letterboxing and recording in stereo because that VCR did record in stereo. I was a big RCA fanatic. RCA was my jam when it came to, I think I owned 4 of them. I went from an RCA 625 to an RCA VFT 650, 2 of those, and then that other RCA deck. But anyway, so you had to work. The point was, if you wanted a copy of a movie on video, you sometimes had to wait years. It took years for movies to come out on video. And if you wanted them, you had to work. You had to either bootleg or swap with other bootleggers. But I mean, I was making, as a 16-year-old kid, I was making thousands of dollars. By the way, kids, 39 years on, I do not recommend bootlegging. It steals money from my pocket. It steals money from the pockets of all the hardworking people that work in Hollywood. Don't be a bootlegger. But anyway, what happened was when you'd put that much effort into acquiring something for your fandom, I was always ordering. There was no Amazon, so I would go to Island Books where these little old ladies worked behind the counter. They were very nice, and I would order books, and I'd wait. I'd see in the back of I'd read Graham Masterton's The Manitou, and then in the back they would have ads for his other books like the Genie, the Jinn, or the Sphinx, you know, or another Manitou book or something. And I would have to order a book like out of the back. And I wasn't going to cut. Sometimes they come with coupons. I was like, I'm not going to cut my horror paperbacks. And they would order them for me and you'd have to wait. You'd wait and there would be the anticipation like, oh my God, I can't wait to get this. And you didn't have to wait 2 days. Sometimes I waited months. I would get a phone call. Hi, I'm Bobby Burnett. Is that you? We got your Graham Masterton Revenge of the Manitou has come in. I'd be like 6 months later and be like, oh my God. Then I'd have to get on the bus because no one was going to take me down to I could either ride my bike, which was kind of a trek. It was like 6 miles downhill and you had to go back uphill. It's kind of a trek, but you had to work. The point was you had to work, whatever it was you wanted, whether it was a movie, whether it was a book, whether you're ordering 8mm films out of the back of Famous Monsters of Filmland. One of the worst things is there's these magazines that Forrest J. Ackerman had, Famous Monsters of Filmland being the most famous. In the back of these magazines, they had pages and pages and pages of all kinds of product that you could buy. They had Star Wars toys. They had Don Post Studios masks. They had 8mm or even 16mm versions of movies, like short cut down versions of movies. And you would order them out of the back of these magazines. And it would take sometimes months. I'd like to think maybe years. Maybe it never took years. But I mean, I remember ordering toys from The Empire Strikes Back, these die-cast, like the die-cast TIE bomber that came out, which is really hard to get. And waiting months for these things to show up. And when you would get them, it was literally like you couldn't stop touching them. It was a big thing. So when you would get these things, they mattered. They were important. Kind of like, I don't know, like they were almost like religious artifacts, when they would show up, it was almost like you had to go find the Well of the Souls. You had to travel to Nepal and get the headpiece to the staff of Ra before you could find your way where the Well of Souls was to get the Ark. I mean, you had to go through that much trouble to get Graham Masterton's Revenge of the Manitou. It was that kind of thing. And so when you would get these things, like, you would just devour whatever it was, whether it was a book, whether it was a magazine, whether it was a record album. I remember getting this record album called Inside Star Trek, which was Gene Roddenberry talking about Star Trek, and he would bring in guest stars like Mark Leonard, who played Sarek, and it was the spoken word examination into the whole Star Trek phenomenon. It was an LP. It was like 33 and a half or whatever, 33 and a third LP, and I think I listened to that record 1,000 times. Like 1,000 times, because it was Gene Roddenberry who created Star Trek talking. And you would memorize the cadence. You knew, it was like when you heard your favorite record album, you knew how long the beats were between the songs. Like one song would end and you'd know how many beats would go by before the next song started. It was like that. It was ingrained. It was burned into your brain. So, and also, as Norman Lau brought up to me today, he talked about the fact that, when we were kids, you couldn't go to a company like Anovos and order a beautifully tailored Rebel Bespin flight jacket that Luke wore in Empire Strikes Back, or a perfectly machined lightsaber hilt. You couldn't do that. You had to make that shit. I mean, we made lightsabers out of toilet paper rolls, and you'd take flashlights. And if my dad smoked cigars, and I remember going into my dad's den, like at night, he'd be reading a book and he'd be, puffing on his stogie, and his den was full of cigar smoke. And I'd whip out a flashlight and I go, Dad, let me turn off the light for a minute. And you turn on the flashlight and the shaft of light would come up and it would be illuminated because the room was so thick with cigar smoke that you could go, you could do the lightsaber thing. My sister and I we'd even have lightsaber battles with our non-existent blades. You try and fake it. That's what you had to do when you were a young fan, and they didn't make these things. They didn't make everything you can get anything now. So the question that Norman brought up was, because we as fans that grew up in a time when we didn't have everything, was our fandom stronger? Did for some reason, were we more erudite fans? Were we more passionate about what we loved because we had to put so much time and effort into it? Like, we had to wait. They didn't even have certain Star Wars toys. You'd sit around with your friends and talk like, oh my God, are they ever going to make a TIE fighter ship for the 3 3/4 inch Star Wars figures? I mean, wouldn't that be great? We got the X-Wing, we got the land speeder, but there's nothing Luke can't fight anything. There's nothing he can fight. You know how long it took for them to make a Darth Vader TIE fighter? The TIE fighter was the third of the major toys to be released. And of course, they're going to put out the Millennium Falcon. It was amazing. But now, when you're a young fan, and again, I want everybody to chime in on this and tell me what it's like now. Once you've grown up in a world where everything is available to you, does it mean as much? Do you think about it as much? Do you cherish it as much? And I wonder, I wonder about this. Do we? I remember Dario Argento's Suspiria was a very notorious movie when I was younger because you couldn't get it. And I watched terrible dubs, horrible bootleg copies of it on VHS. And, I didn't really like it much. I didn't get it. I'm like, what's the big deal about Dario Argento's Suspiria? Of course, I was, 14. I wasn't impressed. I wanted the hells of pop and gore of Dawn of the Dead is what I wanted. But, Suspiria, the charms of Suspiria were elusive to me up until rather recently, probably in the last 20 years when I first started seeing the movie, on a decent disc, on a decent DVD. But because Fandom was the stuff that we could get, whether it was cosplay, whether it was toys, whatever it was that you could get, you really had to work for it. And when you had it, you cherished it. It marinated in your brain. I mean, you get a VHS of a movie and, you didn't have all the movies you want. You had like 2 of your favorite movies and you'd play them over and over again. And then you'd read about them. And when you get Starlog magazine, you devour it cover to cover, and everything you read, it's like every word penetrated deeper into your brain, or maybe this is just my recollection of this. I could be totally wrong. I mean, now there's so much of everything everywhere all the time my question is, do things hold your interest? Are fans, it seems to me that fandom has become a much more casual thing as we now, all of you here, are part of the post-geek singularity community, as I like to call it. I think on one hand, we have everything, but in having everything, sometimes I feel we might have nothing at all because there's nothing left to cherish. Does anything matter? And I think that, and then I see all the vitriolic hatred people had for Last Jedi and how hurt so many people were. Like, there was nothing like that when I was growing up. People were just happy to have another Star Wars movie. Like, come on. We got a Star Wars movie every 3 years, and that was only for a 6-year period of time. Shows up in 1977. We got one in 80, and by 83, there wasn't no more Star Wars movies. They were gone. Except the fucking Ewok movies, Caravan of Courage and Ewok Adventure. Those didn't really count, even though they did. But I mean, now we just expect, hey, there's going to be a Star Wars movie every year. And when they come out, people get mad about them. I didn't love that Star Wars movie. Solo sucked, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, when I grew up in a world, when I was younger, kids, nobody hated shit. They didn't hate it. People loved stuff. They loved it. And now we live in a world of hurt, a world of outrage. And by the way, I was outraged about Star Trek Discovery. I read an article I found totally offensive today on The Verge about Star Trek Discovery, which I didn't like. But the thing was, when we were fans, you had to really work for it. I mean, as a child, you'd wrap a beach towel around your neck and you'd grab a flashlight, and suddenly you and your friend could be Vader and Kenobi, or Luke and Vader fighting it out. It was your imagination, because you didn't have this amazing cornucopia of great things that you could get off the top of your head. I mean, just go. Now you can get anything. And by the way, don't get me wrong. Like I pointed out, I got model kits here I wanted my whole life that I couldn't get. Mobius is putting out a 1/8 scale 2001 pod. Open the pod bay doors. A pod, like a model kit that's like this big. I've wanted it my whole life. I never could have one. Now I'm gonna get one. How cool is that? Well, it is pretty freaking cool, right, Gilbert? Oh, Gilbert knows it's cool. Come up here, buddy. You gonna come up here and let the people home? Oh, Gilbert runs off. He's got things to do, people to see, canines to bother, I suppose, cats to chase. Right, buddy? Love that dog. But anyway, so that's what I was wondering. I mean, do you guys think that fandom runs deep? Does it run deep? I mean, I go to Comic-Con and I see the level of cosplay that people especially when you see, like, one of my favorite cosplayer players that I've seen in recent years was a girl who plays Sadako or Sumara from The Ring, or Ringu, the Japanese Ringu, where the cosplayer had actually, she was dressed as Sadako, but she had a TV around her, so she could get on the ground, have the TV on the ground, and literally be coming out of the TV screen. Now, I never saw that kind of creativity when I was a kid. The kind of creativity that I've seen has exploded. And that's because the tools and the technology and the ability of people to get all kinds of things from all over the world and to connect with other fans. So I mean, I've seen fandom really sort of metastasize, not in a bad way, metastasize into something that is it more mutating into like the way we are Homo sapiens and the mutants from the X-Men are Homo superior. That's kind of what's happening. I mean, has fandom become Homo superior? Has fandom does current fandom have the mutant gene? Is that where we're at now? And I see, some people are more passionate about their fandom than I ever saw. Maybe it's because I was in a minority of one. I didn't have any fellow fans to connect with. But I am wondering, with all of this stuff, does it mean anything really? Do people love things? When I get things, I love them. But again, it's just different. I guess it's just different. But really, this is a question I'm throwing out to you guys. What do you think of your own fandom, whether it's movie fandom, video game fandom, comic book fandom, sports fandom? I was interviewed for a book that came out. It's a really expensive book because it's an academic college tome, but it's called Seeing Fans. And it's an examination into fandom. I was interviewed for the book, but the book has a lot of really interesting analysis of different kinds of fandom, including Doctor Who fandom and things like that. So I guess I'm curious. I mean, how do you guys think fandom has changed over the years? What is your fandom like? What is your favorite fandom? And I want to hear from you guys. Now, before I get into the questions portion of this, I'm gonna shamelessly commercialize this chat. Now, when I first announced I was doing Robservations, and indeed, there's only one official episode of Robservations, a produced episode. It's a 40-minute episode that looks at my friend Greg Smith, who at middle age decided he wanted to get into cosplay. So I encourage all of you to go back and watch the first episode of Robservations. Well, Greg Smith has been sending me videos. He is now building for the upcoming Emerald City Comic Con, which I believe is in April. Is it in April or March? He is building a full-size Imperial probe droid. If you'll watch the first episode of Robservations, you will see that Greg Smith built a full-size land speeder. And he also was on a team that created a speeder bike from Return of the Jedi. And when what they do is they set up a room where you can go take photos, and they raise money for charity. They raise money for the Children's Hospital of Seattle, which is one of the premier children's cancer research facilities in the world. So Greg Smith is doing that, and I'm going to start putting up on my Patreon page for Patreon subscribers. You'll be able to watch his videos as he's making progress. He sent me the first one. It's a quick video, but you look at it and it's pretty cool. So, and I'll put up links if you want to help support that effort of them. They've cost like $850 to build this probe droid. But anyway, he's a great guy, and he's with the 501st Legion. He's with a rebel group also. So he works for different Star Wars fan groups, and he also builds prop replicas, and he builds pieces for people's costumes too. So there's that. But when I first started this chat, people started sending me money via PayPal, and I felt kind of bad. And so I started having raffles. Early on, I started having raffles. I raffled off some comic book stuff. I raffled off the Blade Runner book that I submitted an essay for. So I figured, and all of you people that are giving me super chats and joining my Patreon, I figured, why not make it fun? So here's what I'm going to institute a new Robservations thing. You people are the first. I'm going to anybody who sends a super chat, anyone, all my Patreon subscribers are going to be eligible for this every day. And anyone who wants to just literally, as people did, PayPal me money. So at paypal.me/RMB, anybody who donates $5 or more is going to get entered into a random drawing for stuff, geeky stuff. And I'm going to do the first one today, and I'll announce who wins tomorrow. And the first prize, the first random prize, is going to be from the 80s, an entire run of Marvel Comics Raiders of the Lost Ark. These are mint cherry, as always, coming from my personal collection. And you get the comic adaptations of Raiders and Temple of Doom and the entire run. I think it was 32 issues, maybe it was 38 issues of the Marvel Indiana Jones run. They're all mint condition. They're all cherry. So anybody who does a super chat sends me $5 or more at paypal.me/RMB or becomes a Patreon subscriber, gets entered into that raffle. And I'm going to do one every day just because I think it would be fun, because that would be awesome. And I'm going to give away some geeky prize that not give away. I can't say that. It's not gambling or anything like that. For a donation, I will be doing a random drawing for anybody that would like to donate to this channel for a random prize for that donation. So there you go. Just in thanks for everybody that's supporting me. I mean, people have been supporting me. It's great. I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and I want to make it fun. And also on Patreon, I'm going to start putting up Greg Smith's videos. The first one's going to go up today. It's just a minute long, but he talks a little bit about where he's at. He's building the base, and you're going to watch the probe droid grow. And also my Ripped with Rob Moonraker commentary is going to drop for my Patreon subscribers. So there you go. Now on to the questions. Let's see if anybody. I do have super chats. Steve F sends me a super chat. He says, "All right, Robert, take my money. Any man that works as hard deserves a few shekels." Well, Steve, you, sir, are now entered into a drawing for perhaps the entire run of Marvel Comics Indiana Jones from the early 80s. And they are cherry mint, sir. I do not know, to be honest, if I have the Last Crusade adaptation. I'm thinking I do, but when I went in to get my Indiana Jones comics, I didn't see it. So perhaps it is not there. So I can't promise that, but you get the full run of Indiana Jones comics and the adaptations of Raiders and Temple of Doom, mint condition Marvel comics. I mean, look at this. This is the first. This is some cherry action right here. This comic is from 1981, and it's in perfect condition, just so you know. So thank you, Steve. And I saw a few more down here. Steve F., another one. This is for you as a thank you for Benjamin Workman. Steve, well, I'll tell you what, since you sent me one from Benjamin Workman, you and Benjamin are now entered into this drawing. Anthony Gonzalez, thank you, sir. Was tired as hell this morning, and what got me going? James Horner and his Stealing the Enterprise theme from Trek 3 and Feudal Escape from Aliens. Feudal Escape from Aliens sounds a little bit like Star Trek 2, does it not? Just saying. You know what? I think that James Horner's Stealing the Enterprise music from Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock is one of the great pieces of soundtrack music. It's fantastic. You know what? I could get up to that every morning as well. So I agree. So you too, sir, have been entered into this drawing, Anthony Gonzalez. So thank you very much for that. And it's going to be fun doing this because I'm going to do it every day. So I'll announce the winner of the previous day's drawing, and then I will send out the comics to you. Reese Williams says, "Hello, Rob. Missed you on the John Campy show today." Yes, sir. John was having on a friend of his, an actress. I haven't seen the show, but he told me he didn't need me today. But that's okay, because you got to change it up. Vesta says, "Good day or evening for some people, Robert. Love your t-shirt. One of my dearest TV series ever." Yes, sir. If you guys love the Twilight Zone, this is the shirt. I love the classic Twilight Zone. It's one of my favorite things ever. Benjamin Workman said, "I got stoked." Benjamin Workman, I guess your friend has put you in for this raffle, which, you know, these comics are probably worth like $40. Benjamin Workman, "I got stoked when Blockbuster started carrying Blu-rays." Yes, me too. And they used to rent for $29.95. Yes, Steve, they did. Akira's Crow says, "First movie my parents ever bought from a video store was Hawk the Slayer. It took 3 months to arrive. Special order and cost $90. We live in a ridiculous time today. We do, man. People do not know. When the Blues Brothers first came out on tape, it was split across 2 VHS tapes, and it cost $112 because nobody was buying them. People thought they were only going to rental stores, and they charged rental stores through the roof. Writer BL Alley says, fandom used to be about enjoying the content of creators with social media and instant access. Fandom has become a self-sustaining entity separate from the content that spawned it. You know what, writer BL, you are correct. I love this sentiment. Fandom has become in itself a separate entity that's self-sustaining. I agree. And sometimes it overshadows. I mean, what I'm doing now, I mean, since back from 2015 when I started on this newfangled YouTube thing. For the last 4 years. And also when I wrote for Sci-Fi Universe, we contributed to that, the growing fandom that is its own. I mean, people watch, it's like kids watch kids watch YouTube videos of other people playing video games. I mean, that to me is shocking. Now, I would do it because I watch YouTube tutorials about editing all the time. If I don't know how to do something on the Avid or on Adobe Premiere or on Final Cut, YouTube, somebody made a tutorial about it, and it's free. I mean, how great's that? I can't imagine something better than that. That's amazing. It's fantastic. So yeah, we live in fantastic times, people. But I agree, it's become a separate entity. The pundit space, the space I'm inhabiting with you right now, is that same thing. I mean, do we want to live in that forever? But I think it's interesting. I didn't have this pundit space. If I had this when I was a kid, I would be on Trek yards every night looking at their starship breakdowns. I would be all over. I'd be watching Campia. If I wasn't on Campia, I'd be watching John Campia's show. I'd watch Stuckman's videos. I'd watch Dave Rubin or Joe Rogan, people that have long form conversations with other people. I really like those deep dives into subject matters. I love political discourse of any kind on both sides, by the way. I don't just want to live in an echo chamber. I love watching. That's why I like watching, I'll watch Bill Maher and I'll watch Dave Rubin at the same time, and I love all that. I love hearing discourse from every side. I don't understand why people get so angry about it. I mean, there's something to be learned from everybody. Beatmaster says, my mother worked in a video rental store until I was 10. It was heaven. That's awesome, dude. Wasn't it? I bet your mom brought you home tapes all the time. Dale M says, my dad bought a VCR in the mid-'80s, and it was the size of a foreign car. It was a monster. You could set someone's chest like Mjolnir, and they couldn't move if you had help lifting it. It's true. Let's see. Eddie from Space says, he was born in the 90s. We recorded every movie from TV with our VCR. We had so many VHSs that I used them to build a small fortress. Dude, you could build Helm's Deep with VHS tapes. Reese Williams says, hearing about Dark Phoenix on the John Campia show, I'm not surprised by it one bit. Well, I didn't share this in the John Campia show, but I actually heard a lot of details, specific details about X-Men Dark Phoenix, all of which I disagreed with. And it was disconcerting and it bummed me out. But I hope, like Andy Dufresne in the Shawshank Redemption, I hope the ocean is as blue as it is in my mind, Benjamin Workman says, Rob, I'm dealing with kidney disease and self-catheterizing, kidney stones, bladder stones. Your show has been helping me through all the pain. Thanks, buddy. Oh, dude, I didn't even know that. Well, you know what? If you win the raffle, I will send you something extra in addition to these Indiana Jones comics that will help you get through the day. But I didn't know that, man. Get well soon. Kidney disease sucks. I have a couple of friends that have gone through it, and I've known some people that have extreme difficulties with that area of their bodies, and it's not fun. But hang in there, and I will stay here trying to hopefully keep you entertained, because I like to think of myself as Maximus Decimus Meridius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and hopefully I will not have my vengeance, but we all together will have our vengeance against those people that don't understand the greatness of the things that we love. How about that? Brian Ing says, I just finished watching yesterday's live chat because I fell asleep. 2.5 hours of Robservation. I don't know if that's a good thing. People might be, I don't know. Let's see. Bright says, I just watched a little making of Alita Battle Angel. Starting to get really excited. Man, I didn't even know there was that was out. I got to watch that. Reese Williams says, remember having videotapes. The struggle was rewinding them or to rewatch the film. Kids today will never know the struggle of it. Man, do you remember how long it took to rewind a VHS tape? It took like 5 minutes. That was like 10,000 years when you were a kid. Terrible. Let's see. Bill Barkley says, hi, Rob. Have you got the Eaglemoss Sternbach concept Voyager? I did not get the Eaglemoss Sternbach. For those who don't know what that is, Rick Sternbach, who was a designer on Star Trek The Next Generation from the very early beginnings of TNG, he was one of the very first people hired along with Mike Akuda in the art department. He designed various iterations of the Voyager, and Eaglemoss actually made a miniature of his Voyager concept design. So that's really, really cool. I do not have it, though. You know what? I used to buy every Eaglemoss starship, but then I had to be discerning. I mean, I did buy the Bajoran sailing ship and stuff, but then it was like, I like their bigger, their special edition ones and their larger size ships, but they're too expensive, like $60 a pop. I got to get a lot of super chats for Bobby to get all those. Come on. And I love their Battlestar Galactic ships. Pretty cool. Jeffrey Berry says, what up? No John Campy show today. Who's going to die in Avengers Endgame? I'm hoping no one. Someone's going to die, but I don't know who. Let's see. What do people have? Garon Gilham says, I remember in the 80s recycling newspapers to get cash in order to get back issues of DC Star Trek comics. Yes, I sent cash to the mail down to the penny, and it would take like 3 months to get them. Yeah, and you know what? The interesting thing is, I've got that run. I think if donations for my comic book collection works out, because I wanted to get rid of my comic book collection for a long time, just because I've been rebuying everything as omnibus issues, and people are like, why do you want to get rid of your comic individual issues? Because I've got tens of thousands of them, and they're driving me crazy. So if I can share the love with you guys and keep this show on the air, then it's a win-win. And I have that run of those Star Trek comics. If you guys don't know what he's talking about, Garen is talking about the original DC run of Star Trek comics that came out after Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And it's really interesting because they had a Klingon on the bridge named Konam. They had a Native American officer named Ensign Bearclaw. I mean, it was a precursor to Chakotay and Voyager and Worf in Next Generation. And they might have started in 82 and 83 maybe. But the first run, again, had a great ongoing mirror universe story. Everything old is new again. So there you go. Let's see. What do you got here? DN says the story of Star Wars was an LP made for the home market because VHS market didn't exist when Star Wars was released. Dude, the story of Star Wars was awesome. That's another thing I listened to 1 million times when I was a kid. It was the greatest thing ever. Just like photo novels were the greatest thing ever. Eddie from Space says, LP? Actually, you might be serious about that. An LP meant long play. It was a 33 and a third. It was a record, 12-inch vinyl, played at 33 and a third speed. There was 33 and a third, there was 45, and there was 72. So it was 72. Yeah, I think it was 72. It was different speeds that they played at. Bill Barkley says it's a pity Playmates didn't make a model of the Prometheus that could separate. They didn't even make the Enterprise CEO. What's up? Diamond Releasing still finally coming. They're finally coming out with one. Eddie from Space says, thanks. Sorry, man. I'm sorry I'm a little slow on the uptake getting down on these questions here. Let's see. Vesta says, we used to cherish our VHS or audio cassettes because we didn't have so many of them and they were precious to us. Today, nothing is precious. That's another problem. Vesta's right, man. It's like nothing is precious. You get things, and if they break, it's my Master Replicas Enterprise is precious. This thing lights up. The nacelles work. It's great. And these things are precious to me. And I don't know, are things precious anymore? The real question is, should these things be precious? I mean, when I'm dead, who's going to care? My Eaglemoss models here, my Master Replicas Enterprise, my 1/350th scale Enterprise. Unless I'm buried with that shit, people are going to probably just toss it in the garbage, which is really sad because it took a really long time to get that paint job. Dennis K79, aka the Blue Corner, says, I grew up loving my 80s cartoons, but at the time they were with Danish audio. So when I started being able to get DVDs from the US, I was able to see them with original audio and I fell in love all over again. Yes, it's true. It's true. Bright says, Lord Gilberth, protector of the realm and eater of thy snacks. Man, he so does. By the way, this one of my pair of reading glasses, Gilbert, for some reason, look at this. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, look at that. Gilbert. He loves to eat these reading glasses. Oh, you have reading glasses all over the house? Just because I put them on. I don't wear glasses normally. I only wear them to read when I can't see. Gilbert eats them. He's eaten like 8 pairs of my little reading glasses. I changed him up. I went to a different kind. So maybe he won't eat those as much. But these I really like. These are cooler. And he's eaten many, many pairs of those. So still love them, though. Nerfherder21 says, greetings from England. With the popular theory that Doctor Strange went back in time to tell Fury about Thanos, did you think Doctor Strange will cameo in Captain Marvel? Probably not, unless it's a post-credit sequence, because the movie takes place in obviously the 90s, but one never knows. Juko from Finland is here, says, I've grown a specific taste for collectives and movies and stuff. It was very different in the late 70s and 80s, and everything was interesting and wonderful. It's true. You know, he's right, because back then everything was new. That's another thing I always talk to people about their fandom, about how back in the day, starting, I think, with The Exorcist. I would say that the first time this all began was with The Exorcist, because that showed people shit they had never seen before. The Exorcist really blew people's minds with its depiction of demonic possession and the crassness, the horrible language. I mean, this was the devil like we'd never seen the devil portrayed, and that's when audiences started getting those larger than life thrills like they'd never had before in movies. Films that were scarier than they'd ever seen, more violent or visceral than they had ever seen. And you went from Exorcist to Jaws, to Star Wars, to Alien and the slasher movies, Halloween and Dawn of the Dead came out, horror films, everything started to amp it up, and the special effects made things more real. No one had ever seen anything like Star Wars or Alien before, so things got real, it was crazy. Teddy Mopar says, unfortunately, I can definitely see in my kids and kids their age how this new world of instant gratification we've created is taking much of that excitement and anticipation we had as kids. Yeah, see, that's the thing that I think is missing. That's what I see, is that it was the anticipation and how much this stuff meant. I mean, you'd wait for it and you'd wait for it and you'd wait for it, and then it would come out, and it was such a thing. And I'm still able, like, when I went and saw Infinity War, I had that anticipation. When I saw it, I just sat there. It was really like eating cotton candy at the amusement park when you're a kid and getting that sugar rush. I still have that baked into me, that anticipation baked into me. And actually, through my whole life, people are always asking me, why are you so excited about that? Like I had some knowledge or secret they didn't have, and they resented me for it. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just excited. I mean, you get excited. I got excited for books. I mean, when a Stephen King book would come out, I'd run to the bookstore to get it. I told people probably the 24th time I saw Empire Strikes Back, which was in, I want to say, September. Movie opened in May, and I went all summer. I saw it 26 times. One of the times I was waiting in line, I remember I had bought Firestarter the day before, and I brought it with me, and I read it like half the book in line, the hardcover of Firestarter, Stephen King's Firestarter, which came out in, I think, September of 1980, maybe August of 1980. I read it. It was awesome. And that anticipation was great. Brinsley says, I think Rob and you are being too pessimistic. I think people cherish things just as much. It just tends to get drowned out now in the sea of content and fandoms. Brinsley, I think you might be right about that too. That's why I wanted to have this discussion. I mean, I think you're absolutely right about that. I think just we forget, every generation has their thing that's new. What I haven't seen, though, is the vitriolic hatred within certain fandoms that we have today that we didn't have before. And that a big part of that is people can now communicate on the internet. We have that vitriolic hatred spewed everywhere for anybody to see. That was not something that I had when I was a kid, because we had so little of the things that we loved. We were always dreaming about getting more, no matter what it was. We just wanted more of it, and it was never, we just didn't have it. So to get mad at something, why would you do that? But now people have everything, so if everything isn't perfect all the time, but like I talked about before in my piece the other day, it's the reason these things are getting made is different than the reason they were getting made before. Sure, yes, they were always to make money, but the people that were creating these things, there was also that passion. They had created, George Lucas created Star Wars himself. He wasn't creating it because a corporate entity told him he must create more Star Wars. When he was first creating Star Wars, he just wanted an entity to release it. And he barely got 20th Century Fox to do that. There's a great documentary, it looks like it's great, about Alan Ladd Jr., the man, or they call him Laddie, one of the great producers in Hollywood, and he was really the man responsible for greenlighting Star Wars. There's a famous letter, you can probably find it online, I used to have a copy of it, where Laddie said, I guess it's all up to what we think this Lucas kid can pull off. And there you go. So, but yeah, now Star Wars is being made. Disney is looking for people to make more Star Wars, as opposed to people who want to make Star Wars looking for a company like Disney to put it out. And that is a fundamental difference in the creation of the franchises we love. It's very, very different. When you already own the franchise and someone's got to make it, and the corporate entities don't understand why this thing was so good in the first place. They just know it generated money. They don't necessarily understand why. They just know they have to make more of it, as opposed to somebody trying to create an entity and get a corporation like Disney to pay for it and release it. Very, very different in terms of the creation and the inception of these franchises. And that's where we're at now. Bright says it's different, but the fact that we have all this now on a constant basis says a lot about what people are passionate about. If people don't want something, it doesn't sell. That's true. I mean, and again, Bright, that is the upside of the world that we live in, is that we have so much stuff. Like if these model companies, like I know for a fact in the United States, a lot of kids are not building model kits. Bandai put out a 1/72nd scale model of the Millennium Falcon this past year in 2018. It is the single greatest plastic model kit probably that will ever be created of the Millennium Falcon. It's got hundreds of parts. It's absolutely accurate. Is a kid going to build that shit? I don't think so. I couldn't run fast enough to World of Toys. We didn't have Toys R Us in Seattle at the time, World of Toys, to get that model. I used to call up the store every week and go, did you get the model? Did you get the MPC model of the Millennium Falcon in yet? When it came in, I had to run. I had to get my dad to drive me to go buy this model kit. That was it, man. And now we can get the best model kits ever. And are kids building them? No. Why would they? You can play a photoreal. You can fly a photorealistic version of the Millennium Falcon in Battlefront 2. And or any, maybe not in Battlefront 2. Can you fly in Battlefront 2? Or whatever. You can fly the Millennium Falcon. Why build a model kit of it? Why slave for months making a screen accurate model of the Millennium Falcon when you just go turn on a video game and play it? I understand. Let's see. Juko says, I'm interested in the only Klingon musician costume in Targ Skull from TNG and Star Trek 6. You should get those. Those are good pieces. Dale M says, it's a world of cheese puffs now, Rob, that have it all and bitch and complain about everything. My fandom for the superheroes that I grew up loving runs deep, but it's nowhere near as deep as some people. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that too. But you know what? It doesn't matter how deep your fandom is. Another thing is, people accuse me of being a Star Trek gatekeeper. Like, I'm not preventing anybody from being fans of something. What I would like to see is, I want the material that we're all fans of to be the best material it can be. Because when you have people who own Star Wars now, a corporate entity who owns Star Wars, who's looking for people to try and make Star Wars, the actual creative impulse and the reason why that material is getting made is different than when George Lucas was trying to create something from scratch, the space fantasy, and looking for somebody to give him the money to put it out. The creative impulse and the reasons behind the existence of those things is a very different thing. And while, yes, my fandom I've been outgrowing, it's definitely something that is different. And so the end product that we wind up with is very different when it's coming from up here as opposed to when it's coming from down here. And I would bet you, if you did some kind of statistical analysis, while coming from up here now makes more money because they can market it and do whatever they want. They can control it. I think in terms of how people like things, if you polled the entire fandom, whether it's Star Trek, which is now completely beholden to an app, the CBS app, all of Star Trek is being made because of that. And the people that are custodians of the franchise are getting paid. They don't necessarily have any particular love for Star Trek. Some do, but I don't think everybody does. So we're getting things, these fandoms are now getting product given to them that is being made by people that aren't as even passionate about their product as the people that originally created it. And how could they be? It's not their own. They're working on someone else's creation. I get it. So the world's different, but there's a lot of great stuff. Reese Williams says, within fandom, you can get the good and the bad, but I've come across people who, very nice people and interesting to talk to. Oh, wait. Let me get, Reese, I can't read. Within fandom, you get the good and the bad, comma. But I've come across people who are very nice people and interesting to talk to, and I've met a lot of new friends, and it's good in a way. I completely agree. You've just summed it right up, Reese. What's so great about the modern age is that we as fans have this technology where we're meeting and talking to people. I can do this and talk to you guys right now, live all over the world. Some of you are in the UK, some of you are in the Balkans, some of you, I mean, there's people from all over the world here that I'm talking to. How cool is that? And we even get to have a conversation about fandom, which is pretty amazing. Dale M says, love the first episode of Robservations. It made me happy to see how deep people's love for what they love is. I love things as much, but I'm as creative as a box of sticks. Well, Dale M makes a good point. What he's talking about is my first real episode of Robservations, not these chats, but the actual show Robservations. And there you meet my friend Greg Smith, who became a cosplayer, and he's building Star Wars material at full-scale land speed or late in life. And you're right. But you know what, Dale? You don't have to be creative. There's nothing that says you have to be. That doesn't mean there's no wrong way to be a fan, first of all. And if you love the things that you love, you don't have to be creative. You can just enjoy those things. And that's great too. How great is it? There's so much cool shit to enjoy. Man, I can't wait. Let's see. Steve F says, glad to see you're doing this on your own. I'm not a fan of Campia and have not been able to watch you on a show. Well, that's a bummer. I think, Steve, if I might, I think that you just tune in once. See what John and I are doing. I think our dynamic works really well. Just check it out. If you don't like it, if it's not for you, I totally understand. But that's okay too. I mean, that's what this is all about. It's all about being, you should only consume what you like. If you don't like something, don't watch it. That's what's so great about the modern age. The off button. Although I must admit, even things that I hate, I have to keep watching. It's Thursday, right? Beatmaster says, careful with giveaways, many laws connected to it, and sending it to other countries is expensive. That's true. Ivo Browers is a guy I owe a long shot miniseries to. I've packed it up and I went to the post office to do it, sent it to him. He's in the Netherlands and I had to fill out a customs form. But yeah, this is all about a donation. If you want to donate to the channel, I'm not saying you get something for your donation. I'm just going to give people something for their donation just because I think it's fun. I'm not saying if you give me a donation, you get a prize. I'm saying thanks for the donations. Everybody's been giving me donations already in super chats and PayPaling me at paypal.me/RMB. People just been sending me donations. I have personally decided to start giving people something for those donations just for fun because it's more fun for me. And somebody called me a mooch on my chat the other day that I was trying to mooch money from people. So I'm like, no, I didn't like that. I don't want to feel that way. So I decided that I'm going to give people things just for donating or giving me super chats or sending in super chats. I'm not saying you have to or that you're gonna. I'm just saying if you do, I'm going to put you into a random drawing because I think it's cool that you did that. But you're right. There are laws. Dave Parker says, damn it, I want that comic run. Well, Dave, you're too late to get the Indiana Jones comic run because people have already donated. But if there's another comic run, I can hook you up. Writer BL Ali says, it's frustrating to know fans make more money being fans than I do as a creator. Dude, I'm right there with you, man. You know how much money I've made off free enterprise? Not a whole lot. I made a movie, and I didn't make a whole lot on it. But you know what? That's sort of the way of the world now, which is too bad. It's not good, but yeah. Let's see. Bill Barkley says, "Oh, Rob, have you got the dinky diecast TOS USS Enterprise?" I do. I used to have it when I was young. It fired these plastic discs, and it also came with a plastic shuttlecraft. Yes, I have the dinky Enterprise and the dinky Klingon battlecruiser. But I have to tell you, that was one of those toys I really wanted until I got it. I was like, why am I supposed to be excited that the whole underside opens up and there's a little orange shuttlecraft in there? You know, you had to have it. And yeah, it fires discs. But that was when I was a kid, it used to drive me bonkers that they would give me toys that looked nothing like the actual thing just so I would have some kid-friendly playing aspect of it. I mean, if you're going to make the single best toys Dinky ever made, were, even though the Interceptor was the wrong color, were the toys they made from UFO. They made a mobile, which was awesome because it was camouflage green. They made, and it was a matte finish, and it had the single best toy weapon of any toy I ever had was the mobile missile that fired. It fired all the way across the room. It was awesome. And they're the Dinky Interceptor from UFO. But why was it green? Why wasn't it white? I don't understand. But those were great. Let's see. Bozo the Clown says, remember TOS on VHS, 2 or 3 episodes per tape for 15 quid. Now almost the same price for an entire 3 seasons. I know, dude. Amazing, isn't it? Amazing. Bill Barkley says there's no off button on the TVs in the Max Headroom universe. Hello. Yeah, I love Max Headroom. Wake Me Up When You Get There, huh? Says you should rebrand your original Robservations as a road show. Maybe call it Robservations by Rob. Yeah, you know, these are the Robservations live chat. Those are the actual Robservations episodes. It's the show about something after all. But yeah. Stubble McShave says, although Lucas was blamed for creating the merchandising and movies, his motivation for making the Star Wars movies was creative rather than financial. Yeah, because nobody thought Star Wars was going to be a financial juggernaut. That was the thing. At the time, they didn't know. It was total long shot. Nobody had ever seen anything like that before, ever. When it was coming out, Lucas and Spielberg went to Hawaii because Lucas thought it was going to be a flop. He had no idea. Can you imagine what those guys were like back in the day? Spielberg and Lucas, talking about the ultimate nerds. That would have been so much fun to hang out with them. Rob? Are you sure you're drinking a little too much here? Why are we ordering another Mai Tai? Wouldn't you like to just have some iced tea? Come on, George, drink one more. Would have been great. Topher Rock says, hey, Rob, did you see Glass yet? I haven't seen it. I really enjoyed it. Surprised it was panned by the critics. I have not seen it. I'm going to see it, though, probably this weekend. Adam Douglas says, my daughter, 3.5 years old, asked me to pause the TV show we were watching last night so she could throw something out. It made me laugh how when we were kids, we had to run so you couldn't miss anything. That's totally true. That is totally true. MW77 says, also love Glass, and I'm surprised by the hate. Yeah, me too. I know. Oh, Bozo the Clown says, love your Twilight Zone tea. You remember a rumor a while back with Leo DiCaprio doing a movie about the Twilight Zone. I know they were going to do that, i.e. the Twilight Zone itself would be an element in the movie like a dark force. That could have been interesting. As everyone might know, Jordan Peele is reviving the Twilight Zone for the 4th time. It was done 2 previous times, once in the 80s and once in the early aughts to varying degrees of success. J. Michael Straczynski was involved later with the rounding out of the syndication package of the 80s Twilight Zone, which I actually really liked. Adam Douglas says, I think the issue is back when we were kids, we didn't have a direct voice to artists, Twitter, Instagram, etc. So we loved and appreciating everything. We loved and appreciated everything, even if our vision was different. You know, I think you're right. I think that's part of it. I think I know I read a lot, and one of my favorite things about Twitter is conversing with my favorite writers. And recently, as I showed you on a previous chat, one of my favorite writers, Don Winslow, sent me his new book, The Border, which is the Return of the King of Mexican Drug Cartel novels, in advance. And he sent me his last book, The Force, in advance as well. And I've gone on social media and I'm talking about it right now. And it's great. I mean, Jonathan Mayberry, who writes the Joe Ledger novels. I love Jonathan Mayberry. He's now producing V-Wars, I think, for Netflix, which is, I guess, an anthology series about the Vampire Wars. And that book came out on the heels of Max Brooks's World War Z book, which is incredible. And it's great. You can interact with these guys. And I just would randomly talk about artists' books that authors' books that I would like, and find out if they're on Twitter and tag them, and then suddenly I'm conversing with them, and it's great. And I'm not saying they're going to send everybody free shit, but for whatever reason, the authors could tell I wasn't just blowing smoke up their ass, because I would randomly tweet about their books, not when they had a new book coming out, just when I finally got around to reading it or talking to them. That's what the great thing about the modern age is. So, yeah, I think you're right. We can contact and talk to the creators. And if we don't like what they create now, we feel the need behind the anonymity of our keyboards to give them shit. Vesta says, Robert, when you see Glass, if you're going to like it, I would so much to see you having a dispute with Campia. Seeing you two arguing is hilarious. You two have such a great chemistry together. Yes, I love arguing with John Campia. And let me just say, because he's not here, that guy is totally wrong. Fuck his position on Han Solo. For those of you who don't watch us on the show, I'm very, 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 very upset that Universal is making a Fast and the Furious spinoff movie called Hobbs and Shaw. Because we all know that Deckard Shaw killed Han in Fast and Furious 3 Tokyo Drift, or as I like to say, just The Drift, the greatest Fast and Furious movie, behind Fast 5, which is the Citizen Kane. Fast 5 is the Citizen Kane of Fast and Furious movies. The Tokyo Drift is probably the Lawrence of Arabia Fast and the Furious movies, but it introduces my favorite character from the franchise, which is Han Solo, like the city's soul, Solo, played by Sun Kang, who later winds up as the boyfriend of Gal Gadot. And as we know, at the end of Fast and the Furious 3, Han gets killed, and Fast and the Furious 4, 5, and 6 are actually, what are they? They're prequels to Fast and Furious 3 Tokyo Drift, which is amazing. So the order of the Fast and Furious movies goes Fast and Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, then Fast and Furious, which is Fast and the Furious 4, then Fast 5, then the 6th movie, then Tokyo Drift, then the 7th and 8th movie. Actually, I think Tokyo Drift actually theoretically takes place after 7 or sometime, or they just find out in 7 who they get. No, yeah, that's right. That's the right order. Reese Williams says, what do you think of Shazam so far? I think it's going to be great fun. I thought that was going to be a new trailer this week. Not talking about the TV spot. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's been great fun too. I'm looking forward to it. Dave Parker says, what if Hobbs and Shaw is a big hit and they do a Han prequel movie? That's what I'm talking about, dude. Where from the end of Fast 6 to actually Han getting to Tokyo? Let's watch that movie. I think they should absolutely make a Han prequel movie. And you know what? If they do, I'm going to be single-handedly responsible for it. I want Sun Kang to come on the John Campia show. I want us to talk about it. That's what we're going to do. And by the way, hashtag, everyone go on Twitter, hashtag Justice for Han and Sun Kang. Sun Kang is on. It's just at Sung, S-U-N-G, Kang, K-A-N-G, at Sun Kang, Justice for Han. Let's make this prequel movie happen, Dave Parker. Indeed. Let's see, guys. I think that'll bring me to the end of my chat. And I want to thank you for being here. Thanks to you, the Post Geek Singularity community. And remember, I'm going to start doing these daily drawings for everybody who has donated in any way. You can just donate to me at PayPal at paypal.me/RMB. You can super chat here, or all Patreon subscribers will automatically get entered into these daily drawings. And today's daily drawing is for the entire run of Marvel Comics Indiana Jones from the early 80s. So there you go. Thank you for being here. I will be here tomorrow, hopefully with another scintillating topic that you all will join in on. Thank you all for being here. And once again, as always, remember, everybody you meet has a story to tell that you have not heard. All you have to do is listen. Thanks a lot, everyone. And I'll see you on Friday. Gonna go down and get my series.